Well, public impeachment hearings in the case against President Trump began today, and they included a new allegation.
Yeah, this is some really big stuff here we've been following closely. Democrats say the president abused his political power, asking the Ukrainian president to investigate political rivals in exchange for U.S. aid. Republicans say it's partisan politics. A new allegation today. Diplomat Bill Taylor talked about a staff member who overheard a call between President Trump and the ambassador to the European Union.
A member of my staff asked Ambassador Sondland what President Trump thought about Ukraine. Ambassador Sondland responded that President Trump cares more about the investigations of Biden.
President Zelensky went on to confirm a number of things, that there was no pressure, that there were no conditions, that there were no threats.
This case is complicated and is sometimes really hard to explain and understand. The last impeachment hearings with President Bill Clinton were pretty simple. Did he lie to a grand jury about having an affair with an intern? This one, it involves a foreign country, thousands of pages of depositions, public hearings for days or even weeks, and allegations of trading U.S. aid in exchange for investigating President Trump's political opponents. The hearings continue on Friday.